I'm here to share with you also about the story of Love Bonito, how we started, how we grew along the way, how we also pivoted. And yeah, I think Love Bonito has been around for the last 10 years. Have so many different lessons, stories, mistakes that we've made along the way that I think, yeah, I would love to share some of them as well with you. Yeah, I would love to take some questions if you have any later to see if you would like to know about certain aspects a little bit more. So I'll just start by sharing a little bit more about Love Bonito and our brand. This was in 2006 when we started 13 years ago. I was still in school. This is a little bit of background story. I was still in school, and back then, 13 years ago, was before Instagram, before iPhone days. A couple of my friends and I came together because we really wanted to sell our pre-loved clothes for extra pocket money. So it started off as a hobby on the side. We were juggling between school and this little hobby that gave us a little bit of pocket money. Yeah, I guess along the way, as well as we ran out of pre-loved clothes to sell online, people started coming back for more. And back then, it was on the live journal platform. Have you guys heard of a live journal platform? Okay, thank you. I don't feel so old. So it was on the live journal platform, and we were just trading clothes there. And yeah, so we ran out of clothes to sell, but people came back for more, and so we were thinking, okay, what are we going to do next? So with the money that we had saved, we decided during weekends or school term breaks to go overseas, like Bangkok, Hong Kong, Korea, to import clothes to sell. So we did that for a while, but there was always something that I really didn't like too much about the pieces that we brought in. It's either, the fit is not that great. I wish I could change some color details or some technical details or the quality of the fabric. So in my final year of university, in 2010, with no fashion background, no business background, I decided to drop out of my final year of university to start the business. And it was extra tricky for me because I was bonded to the government. So I had to pay off a 5-figure sum to the government to break the bond to start the business. I guess also it was tough because I was in a time where I was juggling school and work. And during school day, when I was in school, I couldn't focus on my work. And so I was always thinking about the business, replying emails, checking with suppliers and stuff. And when I'm at home during work, I would always worry about my assignments. So I was doing neither well. I wasn't excelling in either. So I decided that I needed to strike when the iron is hot. Now, the extra tricky thing was, I didn't have that 5-figure sum of money, of course. And that year was the same year that my dad went through bankruptcy. My mom was already working 2 jobs to support the family. And the year before, my elder brother decided to go for missions as a full-time missionary. So it was really tough for my mom. But I needed to go to her and borrow money to break off the bond. So essentially, long story short, I went to her, and she was so worried because back then, no one had heard of online shopping. Back then, how people would transfer money was really via ATM transfer, or they would scan the receipt over to us, or they would send the money over snail mail on an envelope to us. So she was so worried because to her, it's like, is this business legal? Will the government come after you? It was really scary in those days, and hence it was a real risk for her when she decided to hand me a check, which was essentially her life savings, to take a bet on me and the business. So that was how it was. And I guess that was also one of the reasons why I knew I couldn't fail and couldn't let her down. So this is how it really started back then in the living room with the eldest to the youngest. That's my niece of the family, really helping to grow the business. So that was how it really started. And today, we have a 200 strongman team as well, growing and doing this together with us. So this is the warehouse, as you've seen earlier. I guess for us as well, right? Something that started as a hobby, something that started because we really wanted to share the love of fashion. Along the way, been through so many times where I questioned myself, why am I doing this? Is it for the money? Because if it is, I'd rather not do it because the money is not great, to be honest. I'd rather work a 9-to-5 job, earn a stable income. I don't have to worry 24/7 about the business. What am I really doing this for? Having to dig deep so many times during my journey to really understand why, because there must be a bigger reason, right? Because over the last 10 years, there have been so many times where I really just wanted to give up, and it was very stressful having so much weight on your shoulders and being responsible for more than just yourself, essentially. So we were really born out of the desire to be the go-to safe space for women to discover, embrace, and be confident in who they are. We realized so many times that, hey, when you dress well for yourself, right? All of us have different body types, body shapes, skin tones, preferences, styles. But when you dress well to express who you are, you become more confident in who you are. Stand a little taller, you speak a little louder. And that's what we really want to do for women. We believe that fashion is just a vehicle for us to reach out to women. And hence, I'll share also with you a little bit more about the initiatives that we do for women beyond just selling clothes. So we officially launched in 2010, right? So 2006 to 2010 was when, it just started as a hobby. And in 2009, we decided to, hey, you know what? We're going to design and manufacture our own label, to design and manufacture our own clothing. So that was how it really started. So many stories to tell you on how we, as young women, we had to go to factories in China to beg them to manufacture for us. And back then, it wasn't like what it is today. And like getting slammed on the door so many times by the factories in China, and even in Singapore as well, because we were the pioneers in the online scene. Your big monopolies like Singpost, having a tough time working with them because they just didn't want to serve a special need. And back then was online shopping, right? And so it was really tough, to navigate the scene back then as well, because essentially, just a short story, we were making like 5-6 trips to Singpost with bags and bags of parcels every day. And it wasn't the most efficient way of doing things, right? Because when you're there, we had to weigh each and every package, find out the weight, find out the amount for it, pay stamps on each and every package. And you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of packages every day. And so when I went to Singpost and I told them, hey, you know what, can we work out a special deal where you guys will come and collect from us, one shot with your huge van, and we'll work out a monthly special rate, special deal. And I remember the Singpost guys, I hope there's no one from Singpost here. But anyways, the Singpost guys were like, oh, no, we don't do such things. So anyways, it was really tough. And one day I was talking to a friend, his name is Chang Wen, who is the founder of Ninja Van. And I was just telling him, it's really tough. No one wants to help us with the logistics and things like that. And I guess that's one of the reasons why Ninja Van was born as well. And we were the first ever clients for Ninja Van. So 2 years later, after that, Singpost came knocking on our door. And they're like, oh, hi, how can we find a way to work together to serve you better and things like that? So I guess, the ecosystem back then when we started was really, really tough because we had to navigate and find out a lot of things on our own. So that was when it started. We also noticed that a lot of international brands out there actually catered to the European American women that have very different body proportions, needs, climate, skin tone than us, right? So we really focused on the Asian women, like ourselves, creating for the Asian women. And that was how we also started to have a strong following as well. So a little bit of cultural context, right, for us. I think today young Asian women are more than ever very proud of their heritage, right? Have more spending power, have more independence, and I think they really want to carve out their own path and their own career as well. So I think for us, it's really empowering also women, especially Asian women, to be confident and to just pursue their own path to success. At the end of the day, what do we want to be, right? Starting from a hobby to today, what it is, right? I think at the end of the day, Love Bonito just wants to be the most thoughtful brand made for the modern Asian women. And thoughtfulness is such a huge word, right? I think in our organization as well, what does it really mean to be thoughtful? And I think it really goes back to Jeff Bezos and Amazon's #1 value, which is customer obsession, which I'll share a little bit more about later as well. I thought it would be interesting also to share with you a little bit about our culture, which I'll run through pretty quickly with you as well. I think over the years, this set of cultures have been edited, have been refined so many times because we realized that, hey, actually that's not as important to us, or this is especially important to us. So we have really refined this over the years, and I thought this will give you good insights also to what we're really about, and also what I guess has also made us who we are today. So I think culture is really important at the end of the day, because I think this is a set of principles and values that you and your team run by and follow, right? When no one is looking, or you can't always be there with your team all the time, but what would they default to? I think this is really important. And we are pretty strict in over communicating this. We are pretty strict in also in our performance reviews. You are also great equally as much as you are with your KPIs on your culture values. You are also interviewed very strictly on culture values. So let me go on to share about Love Bonito's core values. So how we do this is we do this in dual way. There is duality in this. For each and every value that I'm going to run through with you, there is an internal meaning and there is an external meaning. Our first value is people matter. So what you will see on the lighter side, which is pink, and the green. So pink is internal, green is external, right? So pink, I think what we always tell our staff is you are in Love Bonito for a reason, right? With your specific gifts, abilities, talents, skill sets, you're responsible for something. Be responsible for your own talents and gifts. Be responsible in growing and in continuously learning. You matter, right? Your teammates matter. I think at the end of the day, we all know that you are nothing without your team, right? And in Love Bonito, we are firm believers that relationships matter. Because at the end of the day, people don't do businesses with businesses. People do businesses with people, right? And this value has brought us through so many different partnerships and favor throughout our journey as well. So I think this is something that we try to inculcate very deeply within our organization and within the team. So that's internally. Externally, right, customers matter. Over the course of the years, I guess one of the reasons why Love Bonito is still here and quite on top of our game is also really because we are very close to our customers, right? And we have also seen the different seasons where we have benefited from being very close to our customers. We have also seen the different seasons where we have really suffered the consequence of not being close enough to our customers. So we really think that this is a huge value for us. Customers matter. We also believe that here in Love Bonito, we're not in the fashion business serving people, but we are in the people business serving fashion. Like I said earlier, fashion is just a vehicle for us to reach out to women. At the end of the day, the end goal is to reach out to women. We are in the women business. Number 2 is really going above and beyond, right? On the pink slide, what does it really mean? Striving to doing more than expected about yourself, your team, and your external partners, right? Having extreme ownership. I'll skim through quickly. And on the external side, what does it really mean for our customers, right? Going above and beyond means really going the extra mile for our customers. And what does this mean from a business point of view? It's really giving them the autonomy, giving them the ability to make decisions for customers that they don't have to tell us all the time about. So some examples are, even for myself, whenever I go to stores or restaurants, one thing that I absolutely hate is when the staff tells me, oh, sorry, but this is not within our terms and conditions. I can't do this for you. And things like that, right? And so for us as well, we try not to do that to our customers. So if we are... the team is allowed to make exceptions for customers within a framework. So I think this is really also things really about going above and beyond for our customers. Now, this is our rendition of really being innovative, right? Because what does innovation really mean today? I think for us as well, it's really being daring and not reckless. For a business that has been around for 10 years, there are a lot of things that we have done over the last 10 years that perhaps no one has really questioned, right? But is it necessarily the best way of doing things? Is it necessarily the most efficient way of doing things? Maybe not, right? So I think for us, it's also how can we constantly give fresh and innovative and meaningful experiences to our customers? One thing that we realize is that the most creative innovations or the most creative initiatives may not necessarily be the most expensive. Let me give an example. Earlier this year, at a regional retail ceremony awards, we won an award for one of the most creative and innovative feature in a retail store. So when you think about it, you might think, oh, okay, what tech did you have to implement in your store to do that? But the fact of the matter is, it was one of the cheapest thing we ever implemented. So what did we win an award for? The feature was actually, one thing we realized by observing our customers is that we realized that women like to shop with their friends, their girlfriends, their moms, or their cousins, or their families, right? And what happens is, usually when they go in groups of 2s or 3s or 4s to stores, usually if they want to go to a fitting room to try clothes together, what people do is that, oh, sorry, there's only one person per fitting room, so they have to separate them out. So it's very weird and it's very awkward, because sometimes you just want to see each other dress up together and get opinions from each other, right? So what happens is, I tried it myself as well. It was very weird, because it was in Uniqlo. I was in the fitting room here, and then my mom was in the fitting room the other side, and we literally had to shout for each other, and come out to help me zip and blah, 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 and get an opinion and stuff and things like that. So we realized, okay, why don't we make our fitting rooms in Love Bonito combinable? In a sense. So it's kind of like hotel rooms where you can combine rooms with a foldable door. We did that for our fitting rooms. So in Love Bonito's fitting rooms, if you want to try clothes together with your friend or your girlfriends or your mom or your families, you can request for a fitting room that's combinable. And so we can just break it down for you. You can just open the door, and it can form a bigger fitting room with like 4 persons, 6 persons, 2 persons. And this was the feature that we won an award for, that actually, if you know, it really doesn't cost much at all. So I guess the value and the principle at the end of the day is really being attentive to the needs of your customers, and then coming up with ideas that can solve it. And ideas don't necessarily have to be expensive at all. So this is one key value for us. I mean, the fourth one is always keeping it real for us, is really about open communication. And I think the interesting thing is really, maybe I'll just jump right straight to the external point of view about being authentic, right? Especially to your customers. Because today, customers are discerning, right? And they can smell when you're trying to smoke them, or they can smell when you're trying to deceive them on certain things. Not deceive, but just try to be not as authentic. So there was one incident 2 years ago, during peak period, during the Chinese New Year period, where usually we work with different logistics partners, and they will also be overwhelmed during those periods, right? And so there were some late deliveries of orders during that period. And so on our Instagram page, sometimes you just need one keyboard warrior to come out to say something negative, and the whole army will come out. Suddenly, the whole army of keyboard warriors will come out to, say negative things as well. So what happened was, there was one person on our Instagram post that ranted about, how we're so inefficient because she hasn't received her order that she ordered last week, and blah, 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 and things like that. And suddenly, like in a matter of minutes, like, tens and tens of people started adding on, oh yeah, me too, blah, 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 and things like that. And I was looking at it, and I was so tempted. I just looked at my team, and I was just so tempted to, okay, guys, should we just delete all the comments, all the negative comments, because it's starting, to get out of hand. And then my team called me out, and they're like, hey, actually, we shouldn't do that, because they will get even angrier, and that's not being authentic. Why don't we just reply to them one by one and apologize and tell them what we're doing for the issue and things like that? And that was, to me, a check on like, oh my God, yes, just really being authentic and keeping it real. And that was what we did in the end. So I guess, this is really one value, and that was just one example of how in Love Bonito we try to keep it real by admitting to our mistakes and apologizing in public, especially when we need to. So, the last one really speaks about teamwork, right? And being better together, which leads me to what I'm going to talk about next, which is community. I think externally as well, and throughout the whole 10 years, we realized that, especially today, consumers expect convenience, but they crave connection. They crave a meaningful connection. I think today more than ever, there are a lot of brands out there. If you realize, like ourselves as consumers, we have a transactional relationship with a lot of brands, like between Grab and Gojek, Grab and Uber before. It's really just a matter of, who's cheaper? I'll just go for the cheaper one. When you want to go somewhere, you just tend to check out the prices to see who's cheaper, and you go to the cheaper one. And then there are also great brands like Nikes, your Apples, that they may not necessarily have the best products, but people are willing to pay top dollar, or they're willing to pay more just to buy into an Apple or a Nike product, right? And I guess that's the difference between having a transactional brand and having a brand that really speaks to the values of consumers today. Which is really what brings me to my next topic, which is really about community. I think community is that one thing that has kept Love Bonito going for the last 10 years, right? And the community is the one thing that has kept us, in comparison to our peers, we have the lowest marketing dollars spent. Community is the one thing that has also kept us alive via word of mouth. So one thing is that, Love Bonito has 3% of marketing dollars versus what's in the industry today, 25%, things like that. So I think this is something that has really kept us going, but you must also understand that this is a really long game. Unless you're in it for the long run, it's not going to make immediate sense. So for us, these are just some stats that Love Bonito has garnered. Also some stats on our base, our highly engaged base as well. These are taken from our slides to investors and to the board. So just sharing with you. So I think traditionally, email open rates, we have about 35%, which is higher than industry standards as well, of about 20%. Repurchase rates, marketing dollar is low because we spread it primarily through word of mouth, through also customers recommending their friends and things like that, and we also know that that's most authentic today. So to share with you also the different kinds of community events that we do, I'm going to run you through the different kinds of community events that Love Bonito does, right? So if we start by big experiences, like for example, a store opening. Love Bonito today has 3 stores in Singapore. We have it in Gem, Funan, and 313. So store openings are huge for us because I think that's one of the reasons why we even decided to open a physical store. And people always ask us, why do you want to open stores when retail is dead? But the thing is, we don't believe that retail is dead. Only the traditional old way of doing retail is dead, right? Today, more than ever, you must give people a good enough reason to come down to your store, especially in a time where you can buy literally anything on your mobile phone anytime that you want. Why should people come down to your store? I think one of the reasons why we also decided to set up a store is also because it's a great place for us to get to know customers and a great place for customers to get to know us even more. One thing we realized also is that data can tell us what sells, what doesn't sell, but it's really in going down and talking and observing customers that we realize why it sells, why it doesn't sell, right? And there's so many insights that I can't even begin to tell you, so many insights that we have had from interacting with our customers in store that really led us to key product launches and initiatives over the years as well. So the Gem openings are important for us because we ensure that, hey, they are really especially exciting for our VIPs, and it's not just a usual way of interacting with customers. Other kinds of big experiences are like your Funan store opening, the launch of a new line, and International Women's Day, which is non-fashion related, but we also brought together key women from the region to speak to other women in our community, to grow together and to journey along together. Next, if we talk about brand experiences and store experiences, right? I think in-store experiences, if you visit our store, we literally have a significant amount of space carved out for community events. And also it's a space where men and husbands or partners would sit while waiting for their wives or partners or girlfriends to shop. So this is a space where we usually hold workshops, varying from fashion styling workshops, how to dress for your body type, body shape, to even lifestyle workshops, to even workshops that talk about mental health, mental illnesses. Recently, we did one for postnatal depression as well. Things like that, where we really brought women together and to journey with her. All these are examples that we have in collaboration also with other brands. So, this has brought me to the end of my presentation, and would love to hear if you have any kinds of questions for me, or if there's anything else that you want me to explain more about. Would love to take any questions from you. Yeah?
Hi, thank you very much for your story. Very moving and inspiring. What I'm curious to know is there's a lot of pressure for brands like yourself in terms of fast fashion criticism.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that conversation with the criticism?
No, that's a good question. So the question is about, today a lot of spotlight is on sustainability and fast fashion, right? And for us as well, it's really understanding what sustainability really, really means. Does sustainability really mean just essentially buying less, right? And for us, I think one thing that we've realized, and let's talk about the downstream side of things. Upstream side of things, Love Bonito, we have 3 factory partners, and all of them are certified as well within sustainable ranges in terms of, for example, the fabric. When we wash the fabric, the water that we use, we recycle the water, for irrigation and things like that. So all those upstream side, we are very particular about that. But I think downstream side for us, when it comes to customers as well, we realize that, hey, sustainability doesn't necessarily only mean buying less, right? It's also recycling and reusing what we have, especially in the future as well. So one thing that we are doing in 2020 and we have started doing in 2019 as well is we are starting this movement where we get women to donate clothing that we already have, and all of us have clothing that we already have that might not wear, and we donate them to the underprivileged, right? And in Singapore and in Malaysia and Indonesia, we work with different associations, women's association, to donate this clothing to them, especially in the rural parts of Malaysia and Indonesia. How can we use clothing that we have had and wouldn't wear anymore and pass it on to someone who really needs them? Because I think poverty rates are also rising around the world, right? And for us, it's not just discarding them or disposing them mindlessly. Neither is it just buying less, because I think all of us, we also, we want to be able to have different kinds of clothes to wear. Maybe perhaps instead of buying weekly, we buy monthly. So I guess for us, it's also being more conscious about the entire ecosystem that we have by ensuring that we donate clothing that we don't already wear to the underprivileged. So I think that's the mindset that we want to have for our customers.
Sorry, coming back to associating your brand with women, giving women a better world and so forth. But also the fast fashion also are very concerned with fair pay to women who are manufacturing such outfits. So how do you manage that conversation?
So the question is about fair pay to
like women, because obviously in a modern city like Singapore, Hong Kong, we can afford to do a lot. But our women in the other worlds, like India or Sri Lanka or China, where they're manufacturing for us, for our brands, may not have that. So how do you manage that conversation in terms of transparency?
Yeah, it's true. So I guess for us as well, even for myself, right? I just came back from a trip to China just on Monday. I was there, and I think it's also frequent visits to these partner factories. And over the years, we have dropped partners when we realized that, hey, perhaps they have crazy, insane work hours that are not normal. Already in China, they have crazy insane work hours where they only have 1 day break a month. They work literally from 8 to 11 p.m., things like that, right? And so for us, it's being strict with them by having key contracts and also going down to check frequently, and also then, certifying on certain things that we really are important to us. So I guess, we have dropped 2 factories over the last 10 years when we realized that, hey, perhaps the values and the way that they're treating their staff and are not in line with how we do things. So I guess that's the little part that we play in ensuring that. I guess that's also really important to us. Thank you.
When we think about how brands like Style Theory, businesses like Style Theory, Mad Thread, where clothing rentals is coming into play, we're now talking about thinking how we extend the lifetime utility of a garment, right? So how is Love Bonito trying to navigate this space?
I guess for us, at the end of the day, right? I mean, the mandate for 2020, and we just had this offsite for our leaders, is, from the last 10 years to the next 10 years, what is Love Bonito going to evolve to? And really, to be honest, from a fast fashion brand, we're going to turn it, the mandate is really from fast fashion to thoughtful fashion. What does it really mean? What does thoughtfulness really mean? And hence, even during my presentation earlier, when I talked about being the most thoughtful brand for the modern Asian women, thoughtfulness is a huge word that internally we're trying to dissect, right? I think that's something that we're really working towards. Thoughtfulness means what actually really matters to customers, right? What kind of stuff do they really want to see and want to wear? I think besides having functional design, pockets, little things that we actually do through our design that really matter to customers in their everyday wear. I think also being thoughtful in the way she consumes, right? In the way she consumes. So I think that's something that really essentially changes our business model a bit, which we're going to have a hard conversation with the board, our internal board about, but I think it's necessary. So I think for us as well, like to your question of how can we extend the life cycle of each of our clothing. The extension of life cycle of our clothing doesn't just start and end with us. It can start with us, but end with a woman who really actually needs it so much more as well, right? Hence to my point also earlier about essentially being conscious about consistently also donating to someone else who also really needs it. Because the truth of the matter is, when we go out there and talk to the women communities of the underprivileged, you realize that there's a lot of women out there actually that cannot afford work pieces when they need to go for internship interviews, simple things like that. And you realize that a lot of us are able to donate pieces that perhaps we wouldn't wear anymore to them. And that to me is also extending the life cycle of the products. Yeah, so that I think that's something that we really want to go big on in 2020 onwards.
Hi Rachel, thanks for sharing Love Bonito's branding. So I think a majority of us here wants to learn about how to build a new brand. And so to that question, to that ideology, I have two questions, and let me know if you can answer them. So one is, if you were to restart over again, are there 1-2 things that you would change and do it much earlier? That's one. And then second is, having to build a brand and let customers pay top dollar, obviously it's something that majority of the brands want. And so do you have a pricing strategy for your products?
Wow. Okay, pricing strategy. Wow. Yes, I mean, okay. Well, that's a long conversation. But I guess, okay, let me address your first question also to building a brand, which essentially is about building a business, right? If there's one thing I wish I had known earlier, I guess, at the end of the day, I wish I had known my strengths and weaknesses, who I am, who I'm not, and what I can really bring to the table, because then it determines the kind of people that I partner up with to do this with me. At the end of the day, one can only do so much, right? And in my early days, I tried too hard to be who I wasn't, right? And I think I really suffered from that. If one thing that I wish I'd known earlier was to really accept myself for who I am, my strengths and weaknesses, everything, and get people smarter than me in different disciplines to do this together. And people who are aligned also in the values, in the direction of how we do certain things. I think that's really, really key. Now, brand-wise, if there's one thing that I wish I'd known earlier is stick to your guts. A lot of times, you get a lot of pressure also from, but the data shows this, the data shows that. And data is really important, but I think in equal measurement of importance is really your gut and your instinct. Of course, please test your gut and instinct out first. We must have a track record of, making right bets based on guts and instincts, but yes, I think this was a hard lesson I learned in 2019, where I really let go of things that are really important because I didn't listen to my gut and instinct and relied too much on data and logic, which actually, there's also limitations to that at the end of the day. So data and logic is really more like history stuff, past, but I think in order like to go into the future, you really need to rely a lot on your gut instinct. Yeah, so that's one thing. Pricing strategy, yeah, may not be the perfect person to talk about it, but yeah, I think in Bonito, well, the thing is because we are such an accessible brand as well, so maybe not the right brand to really talk about, paying top dollar for certain things. So yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
You're talking about being daring but not reckless, right? So since to add on to that question, I was wondering, to go into retail, is it daring or reckless? Or was it a unanimous
That's a really
decision?
good question. Yeah, when we went into retail, having a retail store. Now, there's this concept by Jim Collins. He says, before you shoot the cannonball, shoot bullets first, right? Because when you shoot bullets, they are less risk, less investment, and along the way, you can and adjust your direction and pivot before you shoot the cannonball, which is a monster of an investment. Now, many people don't know, but prior to opening our first retail store, for the 4 years before that, we have been shooting bullets by opening up pop-up stores. 2 months, 3 months, 6 months before we had the confidence, right, of opening a full-fledged retail store. We tried and tested so much along the way, the right kind of way that we wanted to open a store, the right kind of environment, the right kind of size, the right kind of products that we need to display, the right kind of areas, different parts of Singapore or even Malaysia, Indonesia as well, things like that. So we were shooting a lot of bullets before we went into the investment of, before it gave us the confidence also to open a full-fledged 5,000 square feet first store in 3 Orchard. So I guess, yes, it is a daring but not reckless move, definitely.
So actually, to add on to that question, was it a gut feeling or was it unanimous decision amongst the teams? Or how do you actually come about to move from something that you have been more profitable being online versus you have to have overheads?
So the interesting thing is that which is very surprising also to a lot of people, is that for our retail stores, we are also profitable. And that is a shock. Because even for ourselves, right? It was also a gut initially when we realized that, hey, why don't we try pop-up stores to get customers to experience the brand? And then because of that, we realized that conversions are much higher than online back then. Because online shopping back then, people were still worried that they might not receive their stuff. They were worried about measurement, size, and fit. And one thing we realized with physical store is that when people come and try and put on a piece of Love Bonito clothing, they would usually be won over because of the size, the fit, the quality for the price, which is the value that they get out of it. So we realized that conversions are actually 8 times higher in store than online. And we realized also through the pop-up stores that it drives a lot of confidence for people to then buy online with us. So it was a whole cycle that, oh my God, really benefited the brand financially, on paper, especially in that sense. So yeah, I guess it was a matter of gut instinct first to try, and then of course data and logic to prove that, hey, it makes sense. So yeah, let's go for that.
Hi.
Hey.
After the string of really difficult questions I have,
I know.
probably the most difficult one of all. How did you come up with your brand name?
Oh, thank you. That's so lighthearted. How did we come up with our brand name? It's really interesting. So I get people coming up to me, and men in the business world, and they're like, oh, so you're in the fish industry. Because Bonito in Japanese means, Bonito flakes, right? So anyways, how Love Bonito came about was initially on a live journal platform. We were called bonitochico.livejournal.com, which in Spanish means pretty boy. Bonito Chica means pretty girl, but we thought, okay, Bonito Chico rhymed better. And to be honest, back then, we never thought that it would be a huge business as it is today. It was just something more fun. So we decided, okay, Bonito Chico. And in 2010, when we wanted to start the business proper, legally as well. And we did receive a letter from the government to, start paying taxes, start doing things legally. But anyways, we wanted to move to a .com platform, bonitochico.com. And ta-da, lo and behold, someone else had already cyber-squatted the name, decided to demand $20,000 from us. Obviously, we didn't have the money, so we're like, okay, we'll just rename and recall ourselves. So we changed it from Bonito Chico to Love, Bonito. So that was how it was.
Hi, I wanted to ask you, how has opening your retail stores affected your online?
Right. Well, to be honest, I think, especially in new markets, when we enter a new market, like Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, when we enter a new market, we realize that it needs to be two-pronged. Because in Singapore, we've had the luxury to be able to spend a few good years before opening a physical store to build our brand name, to have a certain level of reputation. But we realized also in key new markets that we wanted to enter needed to be together so that people that have heard about the brand online can also go down to try, experience the brand, the products, what we're really about. So in Singapore, for example, that is the best example of, initially it was 100% online sales. To today, can you make a guess how many percent of our sales in Singapore come from online versus offline? Any guesses? 70 online? Yeah. So actually today in Singapore, 100%, when we started online, it is actually 50% online. 50% offline. It's pretty mind-blowing for us. And then, it's really deep diving and understanding, hey, why is it that people like to shop offline? In a world today, in a time where everybody is saying that retail is dead, malls are dying, traffic is lowering, but we have statistics to prove that actually a lot of people are still buying offline. So I think that's one thing. And we also realized that new customer acquisition rate increased pretty significantly when we opened an offline store, because there were a huge amount of people that still didn't buy online, haven't heard of the brand, and when they walked past the store, they decided to check it out and decided to sign up with us online. So I think two things, we realized that yes, it really drove overall sales much higher in that sense, and it also really drove acquisition rate to increase at a much steeper rate when we have offline store.
According to Hong Kong situation now, does that affect your retail store?
Yes, of course. So we opened our pop-up store. So as you know, shooting bullets versus firing a cannonball. Thank God, we opened a pop-up store in Hong Kong this August. So since 2.5 years ago, we realized from our online data that there is a huge amount of organic traction coming from Hong Kong. So it's very interesting to us. So we decided to go down to get to know the market, understand, and speak to the VIP customers in Hong Kong. What is it about us that you like, that is missing in the market, blah, blah, blah. We did full research, everything. And so we decided to invest also on online marketing in Hong Kong earlier this year. And in August, we launched our pop-up store in Hong Kong. And of course, then subsequently, 2 months later, a whole series of unfortunate events are happening in Hong Kong as well. We are in Central, along Queen's Road Central, which is also quite a key area that has recently been affected. So there are a couple of days that we really had to close the store, but there are also, actually most of the days is really actually fine. I think the great thing that we are really thankful about is that in Hong Kong, the goal was really to reach out to the local people and the local market. One of the key things is that businesses that rely heavily on tourists and foreigners are heavily hit, like your luxury brands, right? Because the Chinese have stopped going in, the tourists have stopped going in. But for us, because our goal was to reach out to the locals, and the locals still shop, I think in that sense, overall, we were still quite insulated in that sense. So what happens is when we have to close the stores, when we have to close the physical pop-up store, we actually just drum up spending on online, driving them online instead. So we realized that, hey, actually when people can't go out in Hong Kong to shop, to eat, they actually spend a lot of time online. So we drove them online instead. So net, it was quite okay, thankfully. And I think for us as well, the pop-up was meant to end in October. But the landlord came to us, also knowing the situation, decided to offer us a very favorable rate too after Chinese New Year. So I guess that's something that we will be extending to see how it goes. So fingers crossed. But thankfully, it's just a pop-up store. So in a sense, the commitment is not as scary and huge. So yeah, back to my my lesson and learning from Jim Collins about really shooting bullets before shooting cannonballs. Yeah.